At this point in the expansion, everyone has their main geared out and has at least seen the current raid in some way, shape, or form. And for a lot of players, it can seem like they're just waiting for the next raid tier to come out. So what is there to even do in the game besides raiding and PvP? This list will try its best to show you what other people do in WoW besides endlessly trying to gear up. You'd be surprised how many people love the game and rarely step foot into non-LFR raids or PvP. At number 10, we'll start light with secret finding. With Legion, Blizzard has been adding in really hard to figure out puzzles that ultimately end up rewarding a mount or pet. And the process of getting them usually takes a huge community effort, and once it's finally figured out, YouTubers race to get out their guide first, so other players have a much easier time of hunting down the new secrets as well. Take the secret pet Baal, for example. In order to obtain one, you first need to get the secret Draenei child Una from Legion, or have a friend with the secret pet. Then you have to go on a cross-continental journey between Zandalar and Kul Tiras, going in secret caves looking for pebbles that are also hidden around these caves, in different spots each. Once you collect all 13 stones, you can then go to Frostfire Ridge, where Baal will appear, and you have to beat it in a pet battle to obtain it. And as long as you have Una, or someone else has it nearby, you should be able to beat it no problem. And since getting all 13 stones, even if you know exactly where they are at from guides, can take a few hours. And some of the other secrets involve more complicated stuff, like completed mazes or buying old items to get past traps. But there is a limited amount of these to actually do, so it's not something that can really occupy your time as much as the other items on this list, even if there are also a plethora of other, less time-consuming secret items you can obtain as well. At number 9, we've got low-level Twinking. Twinking used to be a lot more popular back in the day before WoW let you get XP from basically everything. But it's still a thing in the modern game too, as there is an NPC in your faction's major city that can turn off your XP gains. Now, I'm no expert on Twinking, but there are 3 major categories for Twinking that I know of. PvP Twinking, where players will get to the 9th level of a bracket, like level 19 for example, and then gear themselves out with the best possible gear at that level, and then go into Battlegrounds. But since Blizzard changed the rules of queuing for BGs, that only people with XP turned off will face other people with XP turned off, you can't go into a normal battleground and destroy the quest-geared players unless you turn your XP back on. And that most popular form of Twinking has died down, but it is still in the game. Then there's Herald of the Titans Twinking, where players stop leveling at 80 and try to get the best gear possible under eye level 100 in order to complete the achievement Herald of the Titans, which requires a raid group to defeat Algalon the Observer at level 80, with no one in the raid having a piece of gear with an item level of 100 or higher. The achievement rewards you a title, so some guilds like to put alts together to attempt it, and sometimes other low-level raid content is run at level, like the whole Project 60 and 70 things. And new to Legion, there is Island Expedition farming, where you stop XP on a character at around 110 to 115 so that your character can use its Legion legendaries and better farm island expeditions for its rewards. Now, like I said before, Twinking isn't as popular as it used to be, but it is still done, and the other items on this list, as the list progresses, will be showing things that are much more popular or done on a larger scale. Number 8, playing the auction house. The auction house in WoW is like a mini economics game of buying cheap materials in order to turn them into products that can be sold for a profit, and was my favorite thing to do in WoW back in Cataclysm. I'll have most of you know that my first ever venture into making WoW content was not making YouTube videos. It was actually keeping a gold making blog. Because you see, there are so many intricate ways to make gold by playing the auction house that I would go through other gold guides like crazy and try out all of their techniques. And I thought I had some neat little discoveries that I'd like to share as well. Like how vanilla level enchants would sometimes sell better than the modern Cataclysm enchants, because they could be applied to heirlooms and gave significant stat boosts at low levels, since the enchants were made for level 60 gear. Or how you could make a whole bunch of fortune cards for cheap and flip them for huge profit since people like to gamble. I'd also hire farmers for cheaper mats than the auction house prices. I had this one guy who loved to farm titanium ore for some reason, which was an old school ore that wasn't useful, was rare, and took forever to sell. But I'd buy all of them from this guy at a nice discount, because I'd use them to make engineering motorcycles and make a nice profit off of each sale, and I sold them regularly, so I couldn't get enough titanium to supply my demand for them. In addition to finding cheap mats and selling obscure things, there was also setting up your auction house add-ons, all of which are very complicated and time-consuming to get running. Getting all of your professions on all of your characters maxed out, as well as getting reps needed for some recipes. Back in my heyday, half of all auctions on the auction house from my server were being sold from my banker tunes because of just how much things I was moving every day. There was so much that went into playing the auction house that it was almost like a full-time job. And that's not even mentioning the whole sniping aspect of trying to find super cheap BOEs and reselling them. I made so much from selling profession materials that I didn't bother with that. But I do know some friends who make all of their gold from just buying cheap BOEs and reselling them for their appropriate prices. But being an auction house goblin is kind of difficult and takes a lot of planning and prep work, so it's not very popular, which is great for auction house goblins, but not so good for giving this activity a high spot on the list. Number 7, Transmog Collecting. I had a fellow auction house goblin who made a killing selling transmog gear, since he knew which pieces were rare, and would buy them out from people who didn't know that their random green item they got from a mob while questing was actually worth 50k gold. I have a really good friend that I met in game who only played the game to collect transmog gear. She would raid just to get the different colored tier pieces, run old raids every reset on different armor class tunes, look through the auction house for rare green items, and we even started doing arenas for a season together because she liked the gear from that season's PvP set. She had no interest in PvP and didn't particularly enjoy it, but she absolutely ran arenas non-stop for a few weeks until she got a full set. Some people just really like transmog, and it's a pretty popular feature of the game. Number 6, role-playing. The role-playing side of WoW is huge, way bigger than you'd think. I have a mod on my Discord server who is wholly involved in the RP community and has taken me to some of their large-scale events. Like back in August, one of the RP realms held a giant multiple-day tournament at the Argent Tournament in Northrend, with stalls and minigames set up in order to raise money for charity. When I participated in the event, I was just an observer, so I named my Worgen Death Knight Ben Banemain, and RP'd as a no-nonsense bodyguard who never listened to the warlock he was supposed to protect. The other RPers were not too keen on my super original name, but they were all nice enough and played along. We even got our characters drawn by a real artist at a booth for 40k gold a drawing. They also regularly hold large-scale RP events at other locations, and some have a semi-ongoing story for their realms going on. If you want to see everyone's backstory in RP servers, you need to download the add-on Total RP3, which allows you to make your own backstory and see everyone else's. Some people put a massive amount of time and effort into their characters, and there's even a wiki for RP players to put their stories into one place, with lots of the role players commissioning artists to draw their characters and various events that took place in that character's life. Getting into RP on WoW is like entering a different game, and is a great way to kill time and make new friends. Number 5, gold farming. Now this activity is different enough from playing the auction house, and is a lot more popular of an activity that people do. Not all auction house players farm gold. In fact, very few of them do, and not all gold farmers care about the auction house outside of using it to post their mats. But there is some overlay between the two, since at the end of the day, they both use the auction house. Gold farming for this video will be going out into the world and doing activities to get materials to sell in the auction house or to other players. Whereas colloquially, gold farming can be used to describe any activity that makes you gold. Anyways, what most people who gold farm do is take up gathering professions. Mining or herbalism are the two popular ones, and just go out and gather ore and herbs for hours at a time. Mail their mats to their banker tune and just sell them raw. And it's thanks to these gold farmers that people like my past self never had to leave Orgrimmar to make my mountains of gold. And since it's so much easier to just go out and collect materials and has less startup costs, it's by far the most popular way people make gold in the game. I myself, when I first got started in WoW, used to farm leather with my skinning. And it was because of this that I was able to afford my first mount very easily when I hit the appropriate levels. And all other expenses, since for some reason, low-level skins sold for a lot back when I started playing. But farming doesn't just mean gathering professions. There's also people who farm rare toys, pets, or mounts for the sole purpose of selling them later, and because they know of a good farming spot where they can get them reliably. Or people who farm packs of mobs in certain parts of the world because they spawn quickly in that area and drop good loot when killed in mass. And some people just really like to farm. It's an enjoyable activity for them. Number 4, achievement hunting. Unlike gold farming, you can eventually just complete all of the achievements in the game. And also, achievement hunting is more popular than gold farming. Pretty much everyone likes to get achievements, from hardcore players to the most casual, and achievements have all kinds of rewards that make it worth your time. I knew many people who played the game solely to get as many achievement points as possible, and would talk to each other in guild chat regularly about which achievements they were going to grind out that weekend. And achievements cover pretty much every single part of the game, so you kind of just get them naturally by playing the game. But there are a lot of people who play exclusively to get achievements, which is a monumental time sink, as so many of them just require a lot of time to complete. Number 3, pet battles. Pet battles is like Blizzard's way of adding a new game to the game that you can do for fun when you have nothing else to do. Now, pet battles are one of my favorite things to do in WoW, but most people write it off as just a Pokemon clone. And I mean, sure, it is a Pokemon clone, but I don't really see how that's a bad thing, because I'm a lifetime fan of Pokemon. But pet battles do enough to distinguish themselves from Pokemon, so let me give you a little rundown. Pet battles were built from the ground up to be endgame content. And because it's designed with endgame in mind, it's very easy to hit the max level cap on battle pets. Getting 3 pets to level 25 is the first thing you want to work on when doing pet battles. While in Pokemon, hitting level 100 is something most casual players never accomplish. Hell, I've played nearly all of the Pokemon generations of games since I was in 3rd grade, and I've never gotten a legitimate max level Pokemon in game before. There's just no need to beat the game. But in pet battles, that's the starting point. Then, as you progress further and further into pet battling, all of the pets you face are max level, and the tamers and legendary pets just straight up have better stats than your pets. You can't just use a team of whatever you want to progress, because unlike in Pokemon, you can't out-level the content. If anything, the content is stronger than you 90% of the time, so you have to get creative in your team compositions, use strategies, and play to types and counters. Of course, there's more to it than just picking what types do more damage to the enemy. In fact, most strategies for downing legendary pets don't involve using a counter type at all, and rely solely on combo moves between pets. So when people ask me on Twitter what my main team is for pet battles, my answer is always, there isn't one. You literally can't have one team that beats everything, like you can in Pokemon. Which is then followed up by, a team of 3 Nexus Whelplings can beat half the tamers for World Quest though. And since the level cap for pets never increases, all pet battle content released for all expansions is equally viable endgame pet battle content. The most efficient way to level a new pet is to run the legendary tamers on Pandaria. The hardest event in game is the Celestial Tournament on the Timeless Isle, which requires 15 max level pets to even enter. But there is no way you can beat it with just 15 random pets. The legendary pets in the Tana Jungle from WoD are still some of the hardest to beat. The Garrison Battle has a tamer that makes leveling your pets a cakewalk if it shows up during Pet Battle Week. The Pet Battle Dungeons in Legion were a great addition to the game and can be done very easily on normal mode and require an army of pets to beat on heroic, just like with the Celestial Tournament. Plus, there's the collection aspect of the game, and PvP pet battles, which is a whole other niche within the minigame altogether. There's literally so much to do with pet battles if you're new to them that I kind of wish I didn't have an army of pets to throw at everything anymore. Because honestly, getting into pet battles is more fun if you hadn't done it before, since there is just so much content waiting for you from all of the past expansions. But I also understand most players don't like pet battles as much as I do. So while they may be a popular addition to the game, the next 2 spots are way more popular, and I couldn't realistically put pet battles at number 1 over them. Number 2, mount farming. Mount farming is probably one of the most popular things in the game. Everyone loves their mounts. If Blizzard wants to get players to do something, all they have to do is add a mount reward to it, and players will flock to it. On my channel, I only have 8 videos with over 1 million views. And you want to guess how many of those videos are about mounts? 2 of them. Want to know how many top 10 videos I have about mounts on my channel total? 2. And one of them is my second most popular video. It's not too far-fetched to say a majority of people who have played WoW have farmed for a few mounts. I personally don't really get it. I've never cared too much about mounts. But even I have gone out of my way on more than one occasion throughout the years to get some cool mount. And many people will run all kinds of old raids in hope of getting boss mount drops, like Invincible. I have a friend who parks all of her tunes outside of one raid and just does a stream where she runs that one raid over and over 1 day a week to try and get the mount from that instance, and it's one of her most popular streams. Now I know I've put about 4 or 5 different types of farming on this list, but that's because I know people who farm all the different types of things. Some people only farm gold and nothing else. I had a friend who farmed transmog and nothing else is hardcore. Same with pets, achievements, and mounts. And of all of them, I definitely say more people in the game go for mounts over all the others. And now, number 1, Altoholics. Did you know there's some people who just level new alts to max level and then start a new one? Did you also know there's a 50 character limit on your account? Leveling a new character is a very time-consuming process, unless you optimize it for a speedrun, which most people do not do. I personally am always at the 50 character account limit, and that's because I was really into running Iron Man challenges on my streams for a few years, and I didn't delete all of my failed Iron Mans. I also just make new tunes on new servers for video footage sometimes, so my case is a little different. But I also just used to love leveling new alts and gearing them out. Back in Cataclysm, when I used to no-life the game, I had 10 characters at max level, and all of them were raid ready with LFR gear. And because of this, I was able to help out my 2 raid teams down the spine of Deathwing. On the raid group I healed for, I swapped over to my raid ready Shaman alt for Spirit Link Totem, which made the fight super easy. And on my Hunters raid group, I swapped over to my raid ready Arcane Mage to have burst damage for the fight, which made it super easy. And within 5 attempts, we got the kill both times. I don't do that anymore. Nowadays, I only have 1 geared main and very under-geared alts. But I used to be one of those Altoholics, and there are many more of them out there. I basically only have this at number 1 because most players have an alt, and most players level those alts eventually. And the new allied races have made people leveling alts more prevalent than ever. I probably don't do it as hardcore as I used to, but it is another activity to do in WoW that takes up a massive amount of time and effort, and is actually pretty relaxing to do if you just put on Netflix or a YouTube playlist while you do it. Alright, and that's the end of the video. Now, I know half this list is basically just farming, and if you don't like farming, that cuts out half the things to do. But that also raises an interesting point. If you don't like farming, why are you playing an MMO? Isn't raiding in Mythic Plus just farming for new gear? Isn't doing World Quest just farming for different kinds of currency, rep, and gear? Isn't PvP just farming for higher ratings and gear? The answer is yes and no. Sure, raiding can be boiled down to just farming for better gear, but the joy of raiding is in the raid itself. Coordinating with 20 people to get past mechanics and doing your best possible DPS or healing is a fun activity, and you just happen to be rewarded with gear afterwards. But after getting your first kills on all the bosses, raiding turns into farming. The game is built around farming, and yet people look down on all forms of farming that do not work towards progressing the power of your character as lesser. When really, I don't see it that way. Transmog, pets, mounts, achievements, and even gold all have more lasting value than your gear from whatever the most recent raid is. If anything, those things are more worth farming. But it doesn't feel that way, since farming gear lets you kill stuff faster. You can actually feel your character get stronger the better your gear gets, which is a very fair argument as to why farming for gear upgrades feels like it's more worthwhile. All that to say, I think I'm justified in separating 5 kinds of farming into different spots, since the game is basically half about farming anyway.